Okay, welcome to another video. What we're going to be doing today is taking a little look at the Ubuntu Unity remix of version 20.10, which has not long been released. So I'm quite excited about this one because, as a lot of you may know, I'm a huge fan of the Unity desktop, as it was pretty much the first desktop environment I ever really kind of fell in love with, and it's what kept me on Linux and stopped me from going back to Windows. So we're in the live environment right now, as you can probably tell by the groovy Gorilla wallpaper, and the ISO size for this one is around about 2.4 GB. And as per usual, we're going to be installing it natively onto the main computer here and then taking a little look around. So it's using the standard Ubuntu installer. Let's go ahead and press continue. For a keyboard layout, we're of course going to be using English UK, and we're just going to use this box here to test that everything's working as it should, and continue. So we're going to do the normal installation because we like to check everything that's installed on a fresh install. But if you wanted to scale things back a bit and just have a web browser and basic utilities, then minimal installation is the one for you. And we're also going to install third-party software and continue. So it's now going to start scanning the computer for the disks that are currently inside of it, as well as trying to pick up any existing installations. And the drive we're going to be using is the same one we've been using for a lot of the recent videos, which is the Subrent NVMe. So we've got a few options. We can erase an existing install of Ubuntu 20.10 and reinstall using that same drive, or we could erase disk and install Ubuntu, or we can do something else, which is where you're going to go and sort of manually create the partitions yourself. What we're going to do is erase disk and install Ubuntu and let the installer create the partitions for us. And there's the poor old Subrent NVMe that we're going to be using again for today's video. And now it's going to create a very simple partition layout of two partitions, one for your EFI, and then the rest is all going to be assigned to root using the ext4 file system. Continue. Now we're going to choose where we are, and London is about right, so let's continue. And user account time. So we're going to keep it super simple. I'm going to call it Unity Boy, type in our passwords, and as per usual, we're also going to be logging in automatically. Now, as you can see at the bottom of the installer here, we also have the option to configure the Active Directory, which is a new feature of Ubuntu 20.10, as well as the newer kernel version of 5.8. Now, as soon as I press continue, I will be starting my stopwatch, and then I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so that installation has complete, and it took a little longer than I would have expected, clocking in at around about 6 minutes and 16 seconds once we'd got past all of the user input. But with that being said, let's reboot and check out our freshly installed Ubuntu Unity desktop. Okay, and here we are at our desktop. So first things first, we've got a little update to grab, so let's just go ahead and see what that's going to be updating. So that's going to be updating the Firefox web browser as well as the Ubuntu base. So what we're going to do now is pause the video, let that update, and then I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so we're all up to date and should be good to go. Now, it might just be my sort of nostalgic bias playing a part here, but I still think Unity offers one of the nicest user experiences out of the box, pretty much across all of the other desktop environments out there. So it's a nice and simple two-panel layout with a panel to your left which can be repositioned to a different part of your screen, and then you have your panel at the top. Now, starting at the right, we of course have our power icon, where we can access things like shutdown, suspend, log out, lock, etc. We can also jump into our system settings and go into about this computer, where we can get an overview of the hardware we're currently running, as well as the device name. And while we're in here, let's go and check our default applications. Okay, so for web browsing, we're going to be using Firefox, very nice. For mail, we're going to be using the Thunderbird mail client, very nice, but I'm going to use Evolution in its place. And then for calendar, we're apparently going to be using the text editor, and we also don't appear to have an option to change it to any alternatives, which leads me to believe we might not have a calendar installed out of the box, but again, we'll check that out in just a moment. And for videos, we're going to be using videos, which I'm going to assume is Totem, but again, we'll double check that as well. And then for photos, we're going to be using Image Viewer, but we could also change it to Shotwell Viewer, or if you really wanted, you could also view your images in the Firefox web browser. And just to the left of our power icon, we of course have our clock, volume, keyboard layouts, and then our connections. And now moving all the way to the top left, here's one of the cool sort of baked in features of the Unity desktop, and it's going to be your global menu. So all of your settings for this application window are going to be housed in the top panel to your left. And once you've used the sort of global menu quite a lot, it's kind of hard to live without it. And you often will find yourself just moving your mouse to your top panel there and then realizing, of course, I don't have a distribution that's using a global menu. So when your mouse is not hovering over it, it will kind of disappear and get out of your way to give you a nice sort of clean and clutter-free look to your desktop panel. And then, of course, as soon as you get close to it, it's then going to give you all of the options. For example, in the terminal, we can do file, edit, etc. And while we're here, let's see what terminal we are going to be using. So it's going to be using the GNOME terminal, which of course will be a nice recent version of 3.38.0. Now if we full screen this applications window, you're going to notice that the action buttons here for minimize and close, etc. is now going to be placed where the application's title is. So here it says terminal. Once we full screen it, that will take its place. So as you can see, when we get our mouse close to it, again, we can access all of our settings in our global menu, and we can also close, minimize, etc. all from within the panel. Now, if we just double click on the panel, we can then restore the window to its original size. Okay, now moving towards the left side of the screen, this is where most of the magic sort of happens when you're using the Ubuntu Unity desktop environment. So of course, we have all of our pinned applications here as well as our rubbish bin, and if we hold the super button, you'll notice that numbers will now appear on top of the icons, and pressing that number along with the super key will then launch that application very quick. So let's test that out with Firefox. So super and 1, and as you can see, it's launched it super fast, and we had no need to use a mouse or any other input. Very handy, and once you get used to the keyboard shortcuts on Unity, you'll find that you can really do quite a lot with the keyboard, and it's quite a keyboard driven desktop environment. Now you might have also noticed that when we hold the super key for a few more seconds, it will then also pop open a little overview of the sort of commonly used keyboard shortcuts. So if you've not used Unity before and you're quite unaware of what a lot of these shortcuts are, very simple, just holding super will then give you a very quick and brief overview, and then you can learn that and keep going. Now let's see what applications we have installed out of the box. And we're going to be doing that by using the HUD, which again is a sort of crowning feature of the Unity desktop environment. So it's a global search, and we can also filter the results, so it won't just look for applications, but you can also do files and folders as well as your dash plugins. So for example, if we wanted to open up our default files application, which looks like it's going to be Nemo, it is indeed. So we're using Nemo as our default files application. Now a cool thing about the whole HUD as well is, as well as being able to search for things, you can also press the Alt key, which will open up a view called Command, which is very handy, and I'll show you exactly what I mean right about now. So if we open up LibreOffice Writer, which will be the latest version of 7.0.2.2, and it of course will have keyboard dictionary support out of the box. Now, so we're in the full screen view, but if we press the Alt button, as you can see, it's going to pop open the type your command little overview. So say we wanted to sort of use a function of the application we are using, but we can't quite remember exactly where that function is on the window. So for example, say we wanted to insert a table, we could just press Alt, type in table. There'll be a few options, and as you can see there, we have insert table. So hitting enter will then open up that function inside of that application window, and it just makes life a whole lot easier. And once you get used to that kind of workflow, you'll find it is very quick indeed. Now it doesn't seem that kind of impressive when you're just using it for LibreOffice Writer, but I use it a lot, and especially when I'm using Kden Live, because there's a lot of sort of effects and transitions, etc., that it just makes life a whole lot easier. That when you can't quite find the sort of function you're looking for, pressing Alt, it just makes life so much easier and a joy to use the Unity desktop environment. So with that out of the way, let's see what our default applications are. And of course, it will also auto remember your previous search, but of course it will highlight it. So again, you can just start typing away again and then launch any application you want. So to get to the applications, we could of course just jump straight over to here and go to see more results. Or if we just press the Super and A key, it will then open us up directly there to all of our applications as well as our recently used. So let's have a little look at what we're going to be using out of the box. So we do have a few games here like Solitaire, which I'll probably go ahead and remove. We have Appearance, and we'll check all of the Appearance stuff out in just a moment. Backups, which I'm going to imagine is Deja's up. It is indeed. Let's keep going. And we do have a calendar. So I'm quite confused about why that default applications was asking us to use the text editor for our calendar, but nevertheless, let's keep going. And we use Cheese, which is your little webcam viewer. Now it comes as a new feature of this 20.10 release. It comes pre-installed with the Compizconfig-settings-manager, which, if you remember back in the day, Compiz used to be kind of the sort of the cool thing that you would do on your Linux desktop, where you can do things like wobbly windows, your desktop cube and opacity and all of that good stuff. I was never actually a massive user of Compiz, but it's cool for those who like those desktop effects to have it there, easy to use. Let's keep going. So what else have we got? So of course we have GNOME disks, Files, which is Nemo, Firefox is our default web browser, so it's got the GDebi package installer as well, which makes life a lot easier when you're using sort of a .deb package. You can use this little GUI here to install that package and be good to go. Let's keep moving. So we also have Kupfer, the full LibreOffice suite, which we've already checked out is version 7.0.2.2. A few more games here like Mahjong and Mines. onboard for the on-screen keyboard as well as the settings. Online accounts, I'm going to assume it's going to be using GNOME Online accounts, which makes my life a lot easier when I'm going to connect my Evolution EWS package to use my Works Office 365, and you can set that all up from within there, so that's very handy indeed. Let's keep going. So what else have we got? Anything else? We have Rhythmbox, as we already know. So we have the screenshot tool here, and again I'm going to imagine it's going to be using the GNOME screenshot tool. So that does appear to be the GNOME screenshot tool, which is of the newer dialog from 3.38. But as you can see, it's kind of got some weird sort of bordering effect around the window, but it should work pretty much as you would expect. So let's give it a little go of a selection. And there we go. So we can copy that to the clipboard, or of course save it into our pictures. Let's keep moving. So is there anything else we want to take a look at? And of course we're going to be using software. So I think this is GNOME software instead of the Snap Store. So let's open up GNOME software and just double check that that is the software store we're going to be using. Perfect, it is indeed. So most of your sort of software application installs and updates are all going to be done from the GNOME software store. So I wonder if we do have any snaps installed out of the box. We don't, so pretty much all of your installations will be done in here or the terminal. Let's keep moving. So we also have startup applications. Oh, we do have Synaptic as well. So if you wanted to do some sort of more granular control of your packages, we can also manage our packages with the Synaptic Package Manager, which is pretty much the best sort of GUI package manager that you can get for Ubuntu based distributions. And while we're in here, let's see how many packages we have got installed out of the box. Okay, so a little bit more than I would have thought. We've got 2025 installed out of the box, and also while we're in here, let's go ahead and install HTOP. And in that way we can do a reboot in a moment and see how much RAM we are using on a fresh boot. Let's apply that now. Okay. And let's just automatically close once that's finished. It shouldn't take long. HTOP's a very small package. And we're done. Okay, let's continue with the applications. While we're in here, let's also check what we're going to be using starting up. So we've got the IAM Launch, Kupfer, Nemo, SSH Key Agent, as well as XApp SN Watcher. So not too much going on there. Let's keep moving. Again, we have another game of Sudoku, System Monitor. Oh, okay, so it also has Timeshift installed out of the box as well, which of course you can do the rsync snapshots. But if I had have known it come installed out of the box, I might have chose to use the Btrfs file system to get them sort of proper sort of system snapshots, but rsync works just as well. Let's keep going. Let's just close this very quickly. So along with Deja-Dup and Timeshift, you should be pretty much covered there and feel quite safe in your backups and your snapshots. And we also have Transmission for our torrent client, and it does come pre-installed with the Unity Tweak tool, which we will spend a bit of time on in just a moment. But here is where you can change aspects of your desktop like your theme, your launcher, etc. But before we do that, we are going to reboot to see how much RAM we are using at a fresh boot, and then we'll start changing things up and having a little bit of a play around. Okay, and here we are. So it's using a little bit more RAM than I would have thought from a fresh reboot at just under a gig of 960 MB, and it has also made us a swap file of 2 GB. Now you can get Unity to boot a lot lower than that for your RAM, so it might be worth doing the minimal installation. But what we will also do is remove a few extra packages that we won't be using, and maybe that will help things out a bit. You never know. Right, so now that we've done that, we're going to jump into the Unity Tweak tool and also check out the Unity settings. So let's first start off with the Tweak tool, which again is where a lot more of the magic is going to happen. So of course in Launcher we could do the auto hide and change the size of it, but I'm going to leave it on the defaults for now. But we could also customize the search, panel, switcher and additional. Now your alt tab switching is another sort of really cool thing about the Unity desktop. It has pretty much the best alt tab switcher, at least in my opinion. So as you can see, it gives you a very decent view of the icons and you know exactly what is running there. And if we was to open up more than one window, so let's open up a couple of terminals. And now if we do it again, as you can see, once you sort of get to your terminal window, it will then expand that into a larger view with a full sort of view of the window. And again, it's just very easy to know exactly what is running on that window. And it's a nice and easy alt tab switcher. Very nice indeed. Now let's go back into our Unity Tweak tool. So we can also do things like general workspace settings. So out of the box, I don't think we have any sort of additional workspaces or virtual desktops. So let's go ahead and enable the workspace switcher, and this will put a little switcher on our launcher as well. But of course we can also access this view using the Super and S key, I do believe. Now I don't like too many vertical workspaces. In fact, I like it to keep on a single row, but I do like to use 4 workspaces. Now if we just press Super and S, as you can see, that's the keyboard shortcut to get into sort of expose view, and we can just drag things across different desktops as we see fit. And I do believe the default shortcuts for moving between it is going to be Control Alt and your directionals. Very nice indeed, and you get a nice little overview of your workspaces, and it's a very smooth and fluid animation. So that's your workspaces. What else have we got in here? Okay, so while we're in here, let's check out the theming. Nice, so the default theme is now Arc Darker, and we could of course change it to the Arc Dark, which is more my kind of thing. Nice, I like it that it's using the Arc theme out of the box, but we also do have the Yaru themes and all of that good stuff. Now in icons, Papyrus is the default theme, but it's also included a new theme in this release, which is Numix Circle, which is a pretty decent icon theme, but out of those two, I think I probably prefer Papyrus, so we're going to go ahead and leave it on that. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's go and check out the Unity settings. So let's go into our settings. So when I first used this Ubuntu Unity Remix, it was still in the beta version and it hadn't properly set up things like the Unity settings and the tweak. And I think it still at the time had the GNOME settings installed out of the box. So of course here we can also go straight into our appearance where we can change the background and the wallpapers and the launcher size. So by default it's 48, so we can drag it to a more sort of size that I'm much happier with, which is going to be 30, and then we can also change the behavior. So let's go back. So we can also do the online account, we can check out the power settings, the software sources, the details, and our screen display. So I'm going to show you this now, because if you use multiple screens like I do, at the moment we're in the mirrored display view, but when you've got it in the standard sort of extension, you're going to want to sort of uncheck sticky edges, at least for me, because what that means is when you sort of try and move your mouse between your desktops, it's going to get a little bit stuck, almost like it is a sticky edge on your panel, and you have to sort of give it a bit more of a force to push past it. But other than that, the settings is pretty much set up in the same sort of default way. And while we're here, let's also check out the keyboard shortcuts. Can we access it from here? We can indeed. So let's go into our shortcuts. So here is where all of your default shortcuts can be changed, and you've got things like launcher, navigation, screenshots, and all of that good stuff. So what is the screenshot shortcuts? So to copy a screenshot to a clipboard is Control Print, and to copy a screenshot of an area to a clipboard it's Shift Control and Print. Let's give that a go. Very nice. Perfect. Okay, let's keep going. So now what I want to do is install a few applications and just have a little bit of a play around now. So we're going to use the Synaptic to do that with. And while we're in here, we're also going to remove most of those GNOME games. Okay, let's do a search. One thing I don't quite like about Unity, which has always been a bit of a sort of niggling problem that I found, is the launcher will have like a little weird gap here. Now that is by design, and as far as I'm aware, there's not really anything you can do to remove it. So you can either just do auto hide or learn to live with it. And of course the auto hide will look like this. Let's go into our launcher settings, and there we go. So you can change the animation, but there is no option to do like a smart intelligent hide. So it's just going to be the standard auto hide on your desktop, and then to reveal it, again, you'll push your mouse towards that side of the screen and then it will be back. So I'm just going to leave it in the standard view of always on the desktop. Okay, so before we start looking for applications, let's remove those GNOME games. That should pick up most of what we need to get rid of. So Solitaire, let's mark for complete removal. Sudoku, see you later. And this should also pick up a few additional ones, so that's also going to find GNOME Mines. And let's also get this one here. Now there might be a couple that we are missing, like Mines. No, that has been selected. I think that'll be okay for the most part. So now let's search for Flatpak, because we are going to be using Flatpak and adding the FlatHub repository in GNOME software, and I'm going to use that to install Kdenlive, because that's what we're going to be editing today's video on. Okay, let's mark for installation, and let's also grab, while we're in here, GIMP. We're going to use a native package for GIMP, and I think for the most part that's all we're going to need to install for now. So what I'm going to do is pause the video and be back in just a moment. Okay, so those installations have complete, and we've also gone ahead and installed the Flatpak GNOME plugin as well as the FlatHub repository. So what we're going to do now is reboot, check out a few Flatpaks, mainly the Kdenlive, and I'll show you how it works with the Alt Command key, and then we're going to wrap it up there with some final thoughts. Okay, and we are back, and as you can see, we've very quickly gone ahead and installed Kdenlive using the Flatpak from the FlatHub repository, and you can change the source from the .deb if you prefer to use a native package. Now going back, there's a couple of entries, and the one below it will also give you access to the snap versions if you prefer using snaps as opposed to the Flatpaks and the native packages. Now I've also gone ahead and downloaded the .deb file for Discord, and I can show you how that works with GDebi now. So it's in our downloads folder. Let's just double click and it will open up straight away by default. And as you can see there, it's also going to grab the additional dependencies, of which we need 9. So what we're going to do is install package and be back in just a moment. Okay, so the installation has complete, and as you can see, we are now logged into the Tylers Tech Discord server, which if you'd like to join, I'll leave a link in the description below. So let's close that, and as you can see, you get a proper system tray with Unity, which means your applications that are running in the background will all be accessible from their own icon within the top panel. Now we're going to finish things using Kdenlive because I want to show you how useful that command key is when you're using a more involved program than LibreOffice Writer. Right, so say I wanted to add an effect to this clip, but I can't quite remember what it's called, but I have like a vague idea. We'd select the clip that we want to add the effect to, press the Alt key, and now let's say I wanted to add something to do with the volume. I wanted to change the keyframeable volume. So let's type in vol. So we've got a few options here. So now we can't quite see it just yet. So let's add a U, and there we go. That's the one we want, which is the volume keyframeable. So now if we press enter, that's going to add that effect on the currently highlighted clip, which you will see in the bottom right hand of the screen for the clip properties. Let's go ahead and do that now. Bang. And as you can see, let me just move my face ever so slightly. We now have that effect added, which is of course the volume keyframe there. So again, it's just little features like that that make the Unity desktop a joy to use, and once you learn the workflow, you can really be very productive with it. So I think we're going to wrap it up there, but if you've never used the Unity desktop environment, I highly recommend you download the Unity remix and give it a go. You might just like it. So I was very sad when Unity was dropped from the sort of flagship offering of Ubuntu, so I'm very happy that someone has picked it up and is giving it the love and attention it deserves. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe and also join the Discord. There's a link in the description. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.